Thoughts and Prompts.
Hi and welcome to the first ever episode of Thoughts and Prompts. I'm quite excited to create some content again after a longer break. And what is this about? Thoughts and Prompts. We are going to build stuff with AI. You might be wondering why AI? I think there are two main reasons. Like, number one is building with AI is a skill and you need to practice to get this skill. Comparing it to when you develop software manually with your hands, it's not enough to learn a programming language and just the keywords of the programming language, the syntax. You actually need to practice this. You need to write things with it, and over time you gain the skill to actually work productively in it. And I think the same is true with AI. There are many super shiny examples of one-shot prompting where you just write a prompt and the AI does everything for you. But in reality, that is often different. You need to have some skill to know what to do with AI, how you can use it effectively, and sometimes how you notice that things are going wrong and how to do something different in that situation. So we are building up that skill here. So I invite you on this journey where we use AI to build things. So in those episodes, we might build new things with AI, and sometimes we continue working on the things we started to build before. This is reason number one, and reason number two is it's fun and it feels very productive if you gain some of that skill that we just talked about. Over time, I got married, I got children, I started a bunch of hobbies outside of my living room, away from the computer, and so I had less and less time to actually work on side projects. And I feel like this is changing with AI again. If I can spend some couple of hours here and there with AI, then I can be super productive and get something done. And that is a lot of fun. And that's the second reason why we are going to build a bunch of stuff with AI. So, the big question now is, what are we actually going to build in this first episode? And this is where it might get a little bit ridiculous or meta. We are going to build an agent orchestration system. Everyone and their dog are building one currently, and we are doing it too. Why? One, I think I have some unique ideas or some things I want to try that I haven't seen in other frameworks yet, but to be honest, I also did not look at all the thousands that are out there, so probably there is already one doing it. But the other reason is it is fun right now, and we can use this to build up skill, and maybe we will even use this agent orchestration framework in the future to build more things. That's going to be fun, right? So, let me show you what I'm planning to do. First, let's go through some things that have happened this year. Like, one is people got very excited about this Ralph loop. I won't go through that in detail. Look up this article. If you look up this headline, you will definitely find it easily. The idea is very simple. You have a prompt. You want the agent to build something maybe more complex. And then you have a loop. And every loop you feed in this prompt into the agent. And the agent might work on it. At some point it might stop. And then we start the loop all over again. And there is usually an ending condition where the agent realizes that everything in this prompt is finally done and is working and everything is as it should be. And then this loop ends. Interestingly, this is super effective. There are some aspects that make it super effective. Like, one is you always start with a fresh agent. So you don't run into this problem where you end up with a huge context window and over time the agent gets worse and might lose context on what it's actually doing or might go down the wrong path. Here we always start with a fresh agent. There are ways how this agent tracks its progress as well, so it actually knows where to continue. And that works really well if you take care of some conditions, like the agent needs to be very good at actually figuring out if it's on the right track or not. Otherwise, you might go down the wrong path still, just in a lot of loops. So, I recently used this pattern to build some software, and I was excited how well it's working and how well it's working unattended. So you can leave that running and then you go to bed, and the next morning the agent has done a lot of work. I did this a little bit different though. I didn't write one huge prompt of what I want. Instead, I had a loop with a system prompt where the system prompt essentially told the agent, go into this issue tracker, look at the open issues ordered by priority, and then pick one from that list. And usually the agent picked one of the highest priority issues, worked on it, committed it, and then in the next loop it picked the next ticket from the issue tracker. That worked also exceptionally well, as long as those tickets were small enough for the agent to complete in one loop, essentially. So with that, we have an unattended agent that is able to work through tasks. Then two things happened. Like one, this was super fast now, right? Because this agent does its work. You do not need to sit next to it if you don't want to, most of the time. I'm ignoring some subtle problems you can run into, obviously, still. But it still, after some time, feels slow because it is just one ticket at a time. And sometimes you feel like, man, it would be great if there would be 2 or 3 agents working on this in parallel. This, of course, introduces new problems. It's not as easy as just running 2 or 3 loops. Now you need to figure out, okay, how do I manage the code? I cannot have all the agents work on the same files at the same time, right? So you need to separate the workspaces for those agents. And then you still end up with conflicts, right? At the end of the day, you might want to merge this into your repository, and then, oops, there are conflicts now. So you need someone, probably not you as a human, someone needs to fix those conflicts and then merge. And if you think about the whole flow of, you have an idea or a ticket and you want to ship it, there are more steps involved, right? You might want to have a code review. You might to actually do some testing and see if this is actually implemented what you wanted to. And this kind of requires maybe different roles of agents. So there's not only an agent pulling tickets and working on code, maybe there's another agent reviewing code, and maybe there's another agent trying to fix conflicts and merge those things at the end. So this brings me to another article that I definitely don't want to get into because it's huge. This is Gastown. Again, if you look up this title, you will find it immediately. It defines an agent orchestration framework that Steve Yegi wrote. I feel like this article is super hard to read because it is, 1, super long. 2, it mixes a lot of things. It describes this system that he's building. It is also describing why you should do this and how he came to that, and a lot of other things in parallel. And it has a very complicated terminology with different roles of agents, exactly what I mentioned before, what I want to. But there are things like a deacon, a mayor, polecats, witnesses, and it's super hard to follow. But it's an interesting read, so definitely read that too. So I have one more thing I want to show you, and this is this. And with that, let me talk about what I want to do. This is one flow I could think of that such an issue or ticket that I define would go through. So I, as a human, I'm working on things in blue boxes in this diagram. And we start here with the backlog. So I define all the work I want to do in a project. And I put all my issues in the backlog. Then the green boxes, I'm thinking of agents doing those. And every agent in this box or working on things in this box, they all have a very specific prompt. They do things a little bit differently. So there might be a planning phase. This means almost the same as when you use an agent today in plan mode. The agent will take my ramblings in this ticket and turn this into an actual plan. Then there might be another agent actually working on the code. There might be an agent reviewing this. If you have experience with using automated pull request reviews, you might notice that sometimes you write code with an agent, you put it up as a pull request, another agent reviews it, and it finds issues. So this is really valuable to have one agent write the code and another one review it. And you already see here there might be a path back. Maybe there are things coming out in the review that forces the developing agent to do this again. If we pass review, we might have an agent doing the testing. This heavily depends on what you're building. This might not be unit tests. Maybe the developing agent already wrote unit tests. This might be actual testing. Like if we build some web service, maybe here's an agent controlling a browser and actually clicking around in the UI and seeing if we actually implemented what we described in the planning phase. And then at the end, there might be a merging agent. This agent might take care of fixing the conflicts, but it might also do things like run static code analyzers, fixing the formatting, essentially everything that usually comes out in when running this code in continuous integration. And then this one essentially tries to make it green and then merge. And then you can think in this whole flow, things might go back, as we talked about, from review to developing. Things might go back from merging to testing, and so on. From merging to developing in this flow. There might be situations where the agent cannot actually complete this at all. It also cannot send it back because maybe the developing agent hits some roadblock that needs to be resolved. Let's say maybe it needs an API key. I'm making up something now. Maybe it needs an API key, and this is something a human needs to do, right? It might not be able to actually get this API key for something. So at any phase, someone might put something into the blocked box. And this blocked box is blue here in this diagram again, which means a human needs to do something with the things in it, which usually means resolving whatever is the reason for the blocking state and then move it back into one of the boxes. And ideally, everything ends up in this done box at the end. And one more thing. I mentioned that there might be different agents working on those different boxes. And there might be multiple ones. Maybe there are, let's say, 3 agents here working on things in the developing box. We have 3 agents working on code in parallel. And we might have only one at the end merging, because this is a sequential thing. we need one to fix conflicts and then pick up the next. This is something that does not really work in parallel. So with our agent orchestration framework, I do not want to build exactly this flow. I want to be it configurable. So you as a user of this framework, you can define your own flow. This here is just an example, and maybe I want to do some, let's say, test-driven development. I like test-driven development, and I want the tests to be written before developing. Then I would move a test box here before this. Or I want to review those tests before the agent actually develops. I want to maybe make sure that the tests are actually specifying what I want to be built. So I put a blue box in between where I do a review and then move it to the next phase. So this is piece or requirement number 1 for our agent framework. Flows are configurable. I don't want people to force them into using whatever flow this tool provides. I want them to come with their flow to the tool, and then the tool follows your rules. This brings us to requirement number 2, and the final one for this high level at least. I want this tool not to be the source of truth. Some of the frameworks do not only force you to work in their UI, they also take ownership about the data behind it. I want this tool to connect to whatever planning tool you use. If you use GitHub Issues, GitHub Projects, then this should be backed by GitHub Projects. If you use Jira, then this should get its work from Jira and move things through Jira flows. This should be totally up to you. So you not only configure your own flows, you also configure where this data lives. So essentially this framework should actually get out of your way. You bring your workflows, you bring your system, and then it just works in that. This is the idea. And this hopefully makes it super flexible that I can actually use it in a lot of cases. So let me show you one more thing. I just created this GitHub project. You might see it has exactly the same boxes as the diagram we looked at. And as an example, I want to use this as a source. So I want to configure my agent orchestration framework to use tickets from here. Now the cool part is this framework gets out of your way and you can actually use GitHub as your tool to manage that system. So you will see that things start moving here from the left to the right. You might be able to move things in the backlog up, or you might move things from the backlog in the planning phase because you decide now what is important and what gets worked on. All right, that's a lot of talking. Let's get a little bit closer to actually writing code. This project, let me pull this up. So I have an empty project. It only contains a README, an agents file, and an architecture principles file. I created this with the help of an agent. I asked an agent to interview me, ask me questions about what I want to build, and with that we got closer and closer to defining what we want to build. And then I asked the agent to document this in a README for essentially from the user's point of view. That's what's in the README. Then I asked it to create an agents MD file. This is rules for the agents working on the project. so that they know what they need to follow. And then architecture principles, I wanted to document some of the decisions we made in this interview and also some of the principles, so that an agent working on this project actually follows all the things we had in mind for this project. Things might start to get confusing a little bit here, because we are building an agent orchestration framework, and we are also using agents to build them. And once we might have bootstrapped enough, we might actually use the framework to build a framework. So bear with me, we will get through that. Okay, as you can see maybe here at the top, the project is called Choo. One little thing why that is the case, I mentioned the Ralph loop. Ralph is a character from The Simpsons, and I try to stay in that theme a little bit. There is this YouTube video clip. And that's where it got its name from, Choo. So it's a command line tool called Choo. And choo is actually a command we are going to implement. If we go back to this for a second only. Once I had the theme, I started to actually use names from that theme, which earlier I said this is confusing about Gastown. I started to make it confusing too. I realized those things here where tickets are sitting, those boxes, they are kind of like stations. And the agents essentially move things between those stations. So the agents are actually trains. We have trains that move passengers. Our tickets are passengers through from station to station. And I'm using this theme a little bit in the config and maybe in the commands too. So if we talk about trains, this is an agent. If we talk about a station, this is a bucket for issues. And instead of issues, it's passengers. I'm not sure if we stick with that, but it was fun. So let's only briefly look into this. I don't expect you to read all of that. I only want you to get an idea what this tool actually is. So I said it's a command line tool. The reason for that is because I want it to get out of the way, as we defined before. So you essentially, once it's configured, you launch it on a command line, and then you can watch it, but you don't need to. So you have, or will have, it does not exist yet. In this interview, we just pretended, or we tried to define it, and then we wrote these files and pretended it already exists. So you might create a new project with Choo in it. It creates a config file where you configure essentially, I will use this new terminology now. You will define your stations and your trains and your source, your ticket system, and you will create some system prompts. I'm not sure how we are going to support this. Maybe there will be a template for those so that you do not actually need to write all those from scratch. But essentially, all the different agent types or trains need different system prompts, right? The agent developing something needs different instructions than the agent reviewing the code. So here's a made up config file. Maybe this will change once we actually do the implementation. Let's see. Let's say I define my ticket system. I'm using GitHub. I have a repo, a specific project, and a claim method, meaning we need some kind of way how the agent says, I picked this item, I'm working on this, no one else should work on this. In this kind model, it's a assignee, so the agent assigns themselves to the ticket. There are stations, those are almost like the ones in the diagram. Maybe we will actually change that later. And then I define my trains. For example, a code writer train takes stuff from the backlog into the testing, or from the backlog station to the testing station. And oh, very important thing here as well, you will in the same spirit how we do not care about your ticket system or your flow, you can configure whatever you want. The same is true for the actual underlying agent. I want you to use whatever agent you want. So in this case, Claude. But if you use Codex, Cursor, CLI, or whatever, this should work too. So that also means you need to configure this here. And it's pretty neat because you can say, I want Claude to write my code, but I want Codex to review it. Like here in this example, we then have a test runner that does the testing. It moves things from testing to merge, but this is running in open code. And then at some point you start the orchestrator with Choo. And then it spawns all those agents and they run, and you can essentially watch what it's doing. The agent itself then needs a way to actually know what kind of tickets can I work on. It needs to get the list, it needs to claim a ticket, it needs to move it forward or backward. And for that reason, Choo also has commands for the agent itself. So an agent might call Choo work list to get the tickets that it can pick from. So one small side note here, because it's not documented here, but it came out in the interview. If I'm the agent working on code in the developing station, essentially, I need only tickets that are for me, that are in developing and that are not claimed yet. So if it invokes that tool, the tool doesn't know which agent is actually calling me. So the idea here is, once we spawn an agent, we will also set some environment variables for this agent. For example, that explains what kind of station it picks passengers up from. And then Choo work list actually would work with those environment variables. So I won't go through all of them here. And I think that is also enough for this part here. I think we should actually maybe try to write some of that code. And the interesting piece here is we made some decisions how the tool works and some of the principles we want to follow, but we did not pick any tech stack and so on. So I think that's where we should start. Pick a tech stack and then start working. Let's see, how do we do this? I think let's just only use a terminal for now. All right. I actually was recently wondering if we should try Kimi in open code. I saw a bunch of people being super excited about it. I've never used it yet, and it's currently free in open code, so maybe give it a try. And if it does not work as well as it should, then I think we switch to Claude. All right. So so let's ask the agent just to read some of the files in here. And Once it's done with that, we discuss the tech stack first. Okay, it's an agent orchestration framework, ticket systems, AI coding assistance. Correct. Stations, trains, and passengers, what we talked about. It's an orchestrator and not an agent. Awesome. And then we got an error. All right. Yeah, let's see how well this is actually working. To pick a tech stack for this, I'm currently thinking Python and some standard CLI libraries. What do you think? So, I'm curious what Kimi actually says about that. Seems to be quite fast, at least the thinking. It's doing a lot of thinking. All right. Python is viable, but for this specific use case, I'd lean towards Go. Here's why. Single binary, concurrency, process management, CLI ecosystem, fast startup. Python challenges. Distribution requires packaging. Yeah, but we might use pipx. So that, yes and no. Runtime dependency on user system. That is true, but almost every engineering system has Python in some way or form, right? Complicates concurrent process management. Okay, that's interesting. That said, Python could work well if you use async IO, async IO subprocess, UV or PyInstaller, click or typer, and rich for CLI output. My recommendation: go for the core orchestrator, but Python could be fine if team familiar outweighs the distribution complexity. This is the key point here. I'm somewhat familiar with Python and almost not at all with Go. I do not intend to write almost any code here, so we could go with Go. That would be more an adventure, I guess. Or we could go with Python, and then I would at least feel more comfortable. I'm actually currently thinking Python. I like the idea of Go, but my proposal would be we start with Python because it's easier for me to follow what's actually happening. And then once the framework is working, we might port it to Go with the framework. That would be fun. So let's tell the agent our decision, I guess. I think I would prefer to start with Python, especially since we are experimenting here and don't fully understand where we are going yet. Maybe we'd port it to Go at a later time when it's more stable. Okay, typer, rich, async IO. Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, should we scaffold the project? Yes, let's please scaffold it. Let's use UV and PyProject toml. Yeah, let's see. And let's actually move that to a Tmax session. Oh wow, it already writes all the config stuff. I didn't want that necessarily because we haven't fully defined this yet. Well, let's see. We just said scaffold this, right? Why is it doing all of that? Should have been more precise, I guess, and tell it to only build the basics. It is definitely way too eager to do things. Sure. Let's build it. Here's what I created. JSON. Parse error. You know what? Let's switch to Claude. Let's take a look what it wrote. Adapter config init orchestrator. It wrote way too much. I'm wondering if we should even take that, to be honest. I could either I could try to have it clean up all this stuff again, or we start from scratch. And since we did not actually do much yet, I think we just start from scratch. That might be one of the things you actually need as a skill. Sometimes you need to give up. Sometimes if an agent goes completely down the wrong path, you stop it. Okay, let's try again with Claude. And let me create another window so that we can do stuff while Claude is doing stuff. Get familiar with the project. I would like to implement it with Python clicker rich. Create a scaffold. It's an empty this time. We want to use UV and a PyProject toml. All right, let's start again. And then I wonder what the best thing is to start with. We definitely need the Choo init command. Or do we? We actually don't need it, right? Because we can also create the config ourselves to start with. But it's helpful maybe for it to create some of the folders. Well, let's see. Yes, create all the things. Let's see if we have something created already. Yeah, that looks nice. Yes, install all the things. Choo command not found. Yeah, it needs to run it through UV, I guess. Oh, and it also created all the commands already. Let's see. Nice. Choo, an agent orchestration framework for AI-powered development workflows. Orchestrate AI agents through customizable delivery. Perfect. Commands Choo, init, and work. Okay. Tests, sure. Creates a development MD. Not something I think we need. But let's take a look. Setup, initial setup, running, testing, code quality, I hate this code structure piece. Somehow, every agent, as soon as it starts documenting, it creates this. I'm okay if it creates, some folder hierarchy and it explains where to put stuff, but I hate that it documents individual files. Like, why? Like, if someone moves a file, creates a file, it needs to update this tree here in this file. Like, this makes no sense. I will get rid of this. And then it mentions some of the planned commands. We will get rid of that too. This one I'm okay with. It mentions the setup, how to test, how to check code quality. This is great. Okay, it's done. Let's commit this. Cool. Now, I think we need to look at the config again. We need to define a ticket system, the stations and trains. I think if we go back to the browser for a second, we need to start with only one station. For example, from developing to reviewing. So let's add maybe an issue here. I think we use this test project for testing. I think that still makes sense, yeah. I'm wondering if we should put an issue in here right now. Probably, because then we can maybe start with the work tickets, right? Should we have tickets first for... Yeah, let's first maybe start with the commands that allow an agent to see the work. So we need to... Actually, let's go to the repo. let's create some issues, and it needs to be something we might want to do eventually, but not right now. And we could create a contributing MD. This is something the agent can do for testing purposes, and we do not need to it doesn't matter if it actually does it right now. Add license. I haven't actually decided on any license. What makes the most sense here? Maybe Apache, MIT probably. Make a proposal for a good license for this project. Now let's switch to the project. And let's add those two. Let's assume so backlog is where we edit stuff, right? We did this. Let's say this is what the developing agent does, right? Let's move both into this. And then let's implement the part that passes the configuration. For now, we only want to work on the ticket system part. First one we want to implement is the GitHub project backend. And we want it to use GH under the hood. We could either like use the GitHub API directly, but I think for right now it is maybe easier if you just wrap the GH command. Then we do not need to take care of all the authentication pieces. And we need an abstraction anyways, so that we can support different systems. Let's make this explicit here as well. We want to support different systems in the future, so there needs to be some abstraction. Please recommend a configuration structure for this, and once approved we implement it. For now I will just use the same Claude window, not managing context much. The nice thing is, once we actually have the commands working for picking work, we can actually start to use this manually already. We tell Claude in this example, use the Choo work list command, pick a piece to work on. And from that point on, we will not type into this window anymore. We will just file tickets and see Claude working on them locally here. And then we expand. We will add maybe already the choo command, and it will spawn a Claude in a loop that does this. At that point we will need to figure out how do we want to follow what Claude is doing. But let's stay here. Proposed configuration ticket system type, GitHub project. This is which backend to use, Adapter specific configuration, config GitHub's owner, repo, project number, how to claim track work, claim method assignee, claim identity, username or label to use. Optional field mappings for GitHub project v2, station field, which field tracks workflow stage. Don't understand this. List issues, get issue, claim issue, move issue, add command. Yeah. Like that. The GitHub adapter would use CLI commands under the hood. Yes. Directory structure. Sure. Makes sense. Configuration loading. Questions for you. First I need to write something myself. For I like most of that. Good job. This is just wasting tokens, but anyhow. I want to change the type, I think. I want to make it explicit that this type uses GH, because we may also use the API in the future. So this should be something like, how was this called? GitHub project, GH. This was fine. Claim identity. I think we can leave out claim identity because via GH we are authenticated already and can use that user by default. I assume you want us to be able to assign other users. That's a great idea for the future. So for right now, if I run this, just assign the stuff to me, and later maybe can assign it to specific users and configure it. This is not needed right now. I don't know what the station field is. Optional field mappings for GitHub projects v2. I don't understand station field. What does that do? Maybe we can leave it out for now anyways. Okay. And then let's go to the question. GitHub project v2. Should we support both classic projects and projects v2? v2 use GraphQL, classic uses REST. Cool. I have no clue what the difference is. No, stop. Let's actually... How did I forgot how I get back to... what's the difference between classic and v2 projects? I just created one. I assume that's v2. The station mapping by default, station names should directly map to the columns in the project. So if I have a backlog station, there should be a backlog column, but later we will allow to configure this. So maybe I have a backlog station here, but actually no, I don't think so. why would I have different names in my workflow? Because no one probably looks at this workflow in isolation with different names, like why? So let's leave that out. Authentication. Should we assume GH is already? We should assume GH is already authenticated. Should we validate the config file strictly, fail on unknown fields, or loosely ignore unknown fields? Let's validate strictly, I guess. It's easier to find errors that way. I hope it actually gets also the one I interrupted. We will see. We will see if it makes those changes. Classic for station field based on field. Okay, it has changed the type. Classic simple Kanban style boards with columns attached to repos use REST being phased out by GitHub. Okay, then we ignore this and use v2. The column status is tracked in a field, usually called status. I was thinking we might need to configure which field name to use, but you're right. Let's keep it simple and assume the status field by default. Can make it configurable later. For station field, what is the fucking station field? Status, sorry, station. Sounds good. We just move ahead and then we adapt later. Let's just get a basic in. Sounds good. Afterwards, I have a project I want to test this with. Awesome. And here we can, I guess, leave this. Yes, create whatever you want. Models, sure. I think the goal for this episode is that we have this Choo work list command. And then I want to start one prompt where I tell Claude, execute the command and work on the first item you find. And then I want it to add a contributing file. If we get this, then I'm already super happy, because then we have the foundation to spawn more agents. I think the Choo command is meant to orchestrate the whole thing, right? Launch all the agents and they all run in parallel. I think we might even introduce a train command that just starts one of those trains, because that allows us to test this, because then we can for now just run one train manually for the developing track, and then maybe work through those issues, and then we add the whole orchestration step by step. Actually, let's take a look. Oh my god, it already has placeholders for all those things. Blocked command complete list read start. here's a funny thing. So when I had this agent interview me to figure out what we build, we came up with this Choo work command, right? That the agent will use to find issues, comment on them, and so on. At that time, I was wondering, should this work command, like the other ones, follow the theming? So instead of Choo work, it would be Choo passenger, right? And then talking with the agent, we decided, no, let's keep it work, because the agent working on it on task does not know about the theming, and we might not want to overwhelm it with that theming. So it might better know what to do if it has a work command and I list work items, I start work items. But then here I see things like complete work on an issue moves it to the next station. List available work items at a station. So if we stay true to what I just said, where we want the agent to not care about the theming, we definitely need to fix those descriptions here. Okay, oh cool, we're already done. New files created, testing guide. So those agents, they love to create markdown files, right? Set up for testing, create a test configuration, and sure. Did it create all the commands? All commands now work. Okay, I did not expect that. I was just wondering, how does it actually block items, but I see it does not have them. So let's test it. Create a config for this project. Oops. Let's copy this. Work list to do. Oh. Right now, let's take a look. Choo work list. Oh. We run Choo work list help. I need to specify the station here. That is something we need to make optional later. This is exactly what we want from the environment variables later. But let's go with that for now. Do you want to proceed? Yes, sure. Okay, created a config. Owner, repo, project, claim. Awesome. Wants to add it to git ignore, but I actually think we need to check this in at some point. Let's also create an alias here in this shell. Okay. What was the name of the column? Developing. Choo work list developing. Was this? The name is correct, so let's pipe this in. Something for the agent to fix. Oh, let's also remove this testing file. I don't think we need that. Okay, let's see. Authentication token is missing required scopes. Okay. Let's request a scope. Okay, I guess I need to go through that quickly. One second. Okay, authentication complete. Let's give it another try. No issues found at station developing. Interesting, because as we can see here, there's stuff in here. Let's test this quickly with a bogus one. Okay, it always gives this issue error back. But we have a column with that name. Please check the project manually with to figure out what might be going wrong. Ah, I see the issue. Somehow Claude always says this when you point it to a problem. The status is at the top level as status developing, not in a nested fields array. Let me fix the parsing. Yeah, Claude, you should always test what you do. Let's also, since the error was no issues found at station, can we distinguish between no issues and station does not exist in output? That would be really helpful if we test things and know if this is not working. And then let's already prepare. As I said, once we spawn all those agents, they don't know necessarily which station they should pull from, and I also don't want them to know, because that introduces potential for error. If you tell them execute Choo work list with this station name or whatever, they might do something else instead. And if they only have Choo work list, then that's what they call. So for this and probably other things in the future, we will inject environment variables whenever we spawn an agent. So let's already make this work by doing something like this. Let's assume there is a Choo station or Choo from station, because later we need to know which station we pull from and which one we move it to. Okay, it's done. Let's try this again. Bogus. Station bogus not found in project. Available stations developing. Nice. Developing. That is a nice output. Issues at developing. Maybe it's a little bit over the top because this is output for an agent. Let's ignore this for now. We only want it to work. So what are the other commands again? Let's test them all. Choo work help. Blocked should probably be block. Let's take a list. I want this to be block anyhow. Command complete list read start. Or let's focus on what we do. What did the agent say it completed? List, read, start, complete, and comment. The contributing one does not have text as far as I know, so let's test the second one. So Choo work read 2. Add license, make a proposal for good license for this. Awesome. This is awesome. Unassigned. Here again, we need to figure out if we use that theme everywhere here. We have start that assigns it to us, and we have complete, and we have comment. Let's try reading on the one that has no text. Works too, nice. And then let's comment 2. We should go with the MIT license, I think. Oh, we need to quote that. Added comment. And now let's read this again. It does not show any comments. Let's check whether This is a flag. No. Whoops. When reading a work item, it should also print all comments. Okay, it didn't do this yet. Then let's try the start command. Work start to claimed issue. Choo work list. Oh, we also still need to add this environment variable reading. It does not show an assignee here, so let's look into the browser. Here I'm actually assigned. So this is something we need to fix too, I guess. Try it out. Reading should work. Comments. Awesome. That works. Let's fix the station. So when I call this essentially, Choo work list should also work without a station name. In that case, it should use an environment variable, and I think we called it Choo from station. Cool. And then we fix the assignee. Labels is interesting. Maybe we can use this for something. I didn't plan that we want to add this here, but let's see. Okay, it says it implemented this, so let's try. Oh yeah, awesome. Test with Choo work list developing. Item 2 is assigned, but it still says assignee no one. We also probably need a stop one. We also need to unassign ourselves, right? Okay, let's see. Awesome, that works too. What should we do next? We can try the complete command. Work complete. To station. So that would be Choo work complete to, and then we move it to reviewing. Let's see if this works. Failed to complete. Seems like the underlying usage of GH is wrong. Let Claude figure that out. I almost want to start another Claude to fix this block. It's really annoying me. Okay, seems like it figured it out. And then I think we might have enough to launch a new Claude session, and then let's see if it is able to do it. And again, we will make this two-station option and use an environment variable if it doesn't exist. Fixed issue was that okay, try. Oh, we are again missing. Right, let's try this again. Missing a scope. Set. That did not work. See what Claude is doing with that. Let's so maybe move this here and move this here. So that we can see it move live at some point. Okay, let's try again. It says it moved. I didn't see it move here, but let's refresh. Test yourself. I did. Oh. I did. It said it moved the item, but in the project still see it in developing. Choo work list. Let's double check whether this is also what it sees here. Oh, it does not see it in developing here. That is interesting. No. This is confusing. How is this possible? Once again, refreshed. It is definitely in here. And here it says it removed from developing and reviewing in test project. And I still see it in developing. Now I'm confused whether this is... Let me actually move it over. Does it say something here? Hmm. Let's try this again. Move to review. I refresh it. It is in reviewing here, it is in reviewing here. And here it is still. I mean, we can ask Claude, but I'm not sure if it's worthwhile. I moved issue 2 to reviewing. It's looking correct in Choo work list, and it's also looking good when opening the issue on GitHub. When I look at the project board on GitHub, I still see it in developing, even though the issue itself says it's in reviewing. Is the board just lagging behind, or do you have an idea what's going on? That's sad. I was really hoping we could see this issue move magically over. Since it's back in developing. No, it's not. It is. Oh, it moved over. It's lagging behind. It just moved. Not sure why I'm telling this, Claude, because it's just wasting tokens, but it moved. That is great. So let's actually move this back. Oh my god, what did I do? Let's open this issue. Let's unassign myself. And now Choo work list. And then we create. So when completing issue, the station should also be optional. It's not specified. We should use Choo to station environment variable. It's pretty slow. Maybe it's just the API. Something to figure out another time. Now I only want to figure out if the start working read full invalid request. Okay, then let's start a new session. Look at the Choo work complete command. There's a station parameter, should be optional. When it's not specified, we should use the Choo to station environment variable. There's also an example config. I think we can get rid of this for now. I'm just checking if everything is ready for committing. Oh, export Choo to station reviewing. And now we complete item 2. Awesome, that works too. Add all the uncommitted changes, commit them with a good commit message. Make sure the tests pass before that. And while, oh God, what is happening? Somehow Claude doesn't want to play with us anymore. Alright, while this is happening, we might move the issue back. Funny enough, it is not moving here. I wonder what moved it. Was it that it actually used the command to, and then it moved? I don't know. Sometimes it forgets to use UV, which is frustrating. Which reminds me, we actually need a Claude MD file because we have an agents MD file now. But we do not have a Claude one. Did we actually in development define that we use UV? Yes, here we do, here we don't. And for rough we also did not. Update development MD to mention the UV usage. Make sure development MD is mentioned in agents MD. Create a symlink from Claude MD to that agents MD file, so that Claude will pick that up too. As far as I know, Claude still does not support agents MD. Run rough and then run rough as outlined in the docs, then commit all of that. Oh my god. I said I won't do any coding myself, and I will only do the committing because somehow the API is broken today. Yesterday they released Claude Opus 4.6, so maybe that's why things are not working great yet. Update documentation. Awesome. So now what I want to do is one final thing. We launch a new Claude and we want it to actually work on one of the things using our Choo command. So essentially what will happen inside one of the agents we orchestrate later, we will do this manually once here. Let's see, what was the name? Choo 2 station is developing. No, 2 is reviewing. And from station is developing. So essentially it should pick up one of those. And let's double check they are actually still in developing. Yeah. Cool. So back to Claude. Claude. Use the Choo work. So we are making up a system prompt here just to test this. Later, the agents will be launched with a system prompt that more specifically explains them what to do. Right now, we only want to test it. Use the Choo work command to find an item to work on. Read the item, claim it, and then start working on it. Only work on this single item. Follow the guidelines in developing MD and commit everything once you are done. Then exit. Let's see if it will figure out. It should use Choo work help to figure out how it works. Oh, wait. It cannot actually execute Choo because it needs to run it through UV. Sorry, I meant UV run Choo work. I don't want to fix this now to make Choo work in this environment that Claude is currently running in, so it should just use UV. That should be fine. Need to use a subcommand. Awesome. Okay, it looks at it. I see there are 2 available issues. Let me read the first one. Read 1. Create a contributing MD. Now let's claim the issue and start working on it. Run Choo work start 1. If I open the browser in parallel, open this issue. It is assigned to me. Awesome. Here I'm now assigned to. It reads the README and the Claude MD. Reads the architecture principles. Has enough information. Creates a contributing MD file. Awesome. And what's cool, it didn't know that it's in a developing column and moving to a review column. It just used our command to find the work, picked up one, and it's working on it. That's exactly what we want later on. It's running tests, it's running rough. Doesn't make that much sense right now because it is actually owning at a contributing file. The linting issues and test failures are pre-existing and not related to my work. That is a correct assumption. We should figure out why those are failing, because that's not what we want, but it's good that this agent right now it's ignoring it. Later we never want an agent to continue with failing tests. That would be a disaster. And it said complete. Complete is causing an error. API rate limit exceeded. That is interesting. Because we haven't done that much via the GitHub API, right? We need to maybe look into what it's doing under the hood eventually. But I'm surprised that we exceeded the API rate limit. We can try running this here as well to see if this is happening to us too. But I guess so. But maybe get more details out of it. We definitely need some kind of verbose command that will show us what kind of things we execute with the gh command. But let's take a look. So there's nothing here. It committed the contributing MD. Awesome. Here, uv run Choo work complete 1. Okay, let's look the API limits at some point. That is unfortunately not great. I wanted to see this at the end of the day. But we are there. Like, it did the work, it committed the work. If I, let's see, push the work, did it mention the issue here? Probably not, because it does not know it worked on issue 1. So we might need to add this to the prompt somehow. What we could try is we couldn't complete it, but maybe leave a comment. Oh, it's also API rate limit. Okay. Yeah, let's see. I will definitely debug this, figure out what is happening under the hood. I think we completed, nevertheless, what we tried today. We almost have a small little configurable system now where we can pick columns from a GitHub bot, and an agent has tools to actually find the issues, move the issues, claim the issues. That's already great. I think what we need to do next would be to either launch the whole orchestration to have multiple agents, but I guess for now I would maybe start with a single train command that just launches one agent. And then we fine-tune the system prompts a little bit. And with that, we might be able to get this thing to work on itself. All right, I think that's enough for the first episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.